Hello, Dina, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to speak to us.
Thanks for having me.
So, it's great to have the UFC back in Singapore and bigger than ever with the UFC 275 pay-per-view. Can you tell us how the UFC arrived at the decision to turn Fight Night Singapore into a pay-per-view event?
Well, obviously, look at the card. Number one, and number two, we've been waiting for a long time to get back into Asia, and with our first card back, we had to come back with a bang.
And what gives the UFC that confidence, a pay-per-view format in Singapore would work? Obviously you've had a few events here. Fight Night Singapore's had a couple of big fights, but this is, like I said, bigger and better than anything you've done
Yeah,
before.
the pay-per-view format works everywhere in the world. I
Mm.
mean, when we bring a pay-per-view, it means we're bringing you the best card available, at that time. So, that model works everywhere in the world.
Can you share if it's a sellout? We've heard that it is a sellout. Kevin has been a bit, tight-lipped on it.
It is a sellout. I'm never tight-lipped about anything. It's a sellout. Yeah, I think it's our 16th consecutive sellout.
Oh, that's fantastic. And you mentioned, it is the biggest and best card that the UFC can put on. When the fights were starting to sort of like trickle out and words started to get out, we had Glover, Valentina, Robert Whittaker at first, and then we got Whaley and Joanna. I was like,
Right.
I was blown away, and I sort of knew that it was gonna be a pay-per-view and instead of a fight night event. It's a pretty freaking strong card. Which fight in particular are you looking forward to?
Yeah, Barry. I mean, it's hard not to look forward to the top three fights. Ioannis Jacek versus Weili Zhang is one of the greatest fights to ever happen in the history of combat sports. So to be able to do that fight again and the winner gets a shot at Carla Esparza's title, obviously it's hard to not be excited for that. Valentina Shevchenko is one of the greatest female fighters of all time. And the problem with this fight is a lot of people don't realize what a threat Santos really is to her title. This girl is 19-1. She's got 13 finishes. She's got 10 knockouts. This woman has knocked out 10 other women and submitted 3. She's on a 4-fight win streak. This is a very tough fight. And if Valentina Shevchenko runs through her the way she has everybody else, wow. That, you know what I mean? It's going to be very impressive. And obviously, the main event, styles make fights. Glover Teixeira, who has big power, isn't afraid to stand and trade, is probably going to want to get this fight to the ground as soon as possible. Yuri's ranked number 2 in the world, 96% finish rate. This guy has 23 first-round finishes, 25 wins by knockout, 2 by submission. Those are the tough, the first 3 fights that pop to mind. But, Fiallo is the kid that I really like. He loves to turn around. He loves to fight a lot. So I put him on this card in Singapore versus Jake Matthews. That's a fun fight for me personally too.
Okay, so obviously, like you mentioned, a lot of fun, interesting fights, a lot of big fights, and obviously a very special event that's going to take place here in Singapore. What does it speak of the UFC's ambitions and commitment to Singapore and to Asia to put on this type of show?
Yeah, we've been very committed to doing this. And obviously, we like to put on big fights in great destinations. And Singapore is one of the great destinations in this world. So, yeah, kind of a no-brainer for us.
And obviously it's also a big move for the UFC coming out of the pandemic to sort of like try and get some normalcy going and back into this part of the world.
Amen.
How has the UFC had to adjust its strategies for Asia and for outside the states? Given the challenges presented by COVID-19 and China closing on borders and stuff like this.
Yeah, we haven't really adjusted what we're doing. It's pretty simple, our game plan. The places that are the easiest to do business in and allow us to come in and run our business are the places that we're going to go. Singapore was very, very good to work with, and here we are.
Talking about Asia, the Shanghai Performance Institute, obviously was a way for the UFC to develop stars in Asia. Obviously there are a couple of speed bumps here and there. But generally, how has that been progressing? Has it been going the way you envisioned it?
Well, I mean, if you want to talk about UFC's commitment to Asia, that was, that
That
was
was
the
a big one.
tell-all right there. I mean, the
Yeah.
fact that we were willing to invest that kind of money and build that there, and yes, it's been instrumental in helping us, start to grow and cultivate talent. And I plan on opening more of those around the world and continuing to move the UFC around and doing these big events in all these different countries. It's going to be our first time going to France here this year. I've been talking a lot about Africa, and we're going to continue to move throughout Asia and build talent.
Another way you look to build talent, of course, is I think the road to UFC 275, road to Singapore. It's almost like an Asian Ultimate Fighter. Will this be an ongoing series for future UFC Singapore events, or is this sort of
Yeah,
like a one-off for now?
yeah. No, listen, this is us dipping our big toe into it and seeing how this format works, and if people like it. It's kind of like the Contender Series meets the Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah.
And this thing will air on television. People will be able to tune in and see, the Asian talent fight, and then we'll figure out where the semifinals are, and schedule that later on in 2022.
So do you see fighters from Asia, particularly maybe the men? We have Whaley, in the women and women's category, but do you see the men from Asia bridging that gap between them and the world's top fighters? How long do you think it will take, and what do you think it will take?
100%. I mean, if you look at what we've done globally, and probably the best example I could give you is Australia. If you look at what's happened in Australia in the last 20 years, we had Elvis Sinisic coming out of Australia. Now we have unbelievable talent, multiple world champions. And we always say this, but it's true too. There's over 1 billion people, just in China. And if you look at what's going on throughout Asia and the martial arts culture that you guys have had for, I don't know, 1,000
Centuries.
years,
Yeah.
it's a no-brainer.
Talking about the top fighters, can you give us an idea on when John Jones and Conor McGregor will return to the octagon? We've heard Stipe, we've heard Nate Diaz, we've heard Michael Chandler. Any sort of clue you can drop, or anything in the works?
I'm hoping for John Jones in the fall, and I'm hoping for Conor late end of this year, early next year.
Lastly, looking even further into your crystal ball, obviously the UFC is already the dominant, MMA brand on the planet, one of the biggest brands, in the world. Period. In 5 years' time, where do you see the UFC, vis-a-vis in Asia, vis-a-vis what boxing is doing and everything like that?
Yeah, in 5 years, I see us in these countries that I told you I'm excited to go to and haven't been to yet, obviously. And then, I see us having a much stronger, being a much stronger brand in Asia over the next 5 years, in Africa, in India, and many of these other countries around the world.
All right, Dana, thank you so much. That's all the questions we have for you. I know you won't be in Singapore this year because it's your son's birthday, I think. But
it's my son's 21st birthday this weekend.
But hopefully we will see you and host you in one of the future UFC Singapore events.
Believe me when I tell you, I can't wait to come.